Today we are learning Hilchot Shabbat. We're starting a series Bezrat Hashem, and that series is Nogea, the whole idea of what Shabbat entitles through the Melachot as well. We start off with what the Navi Yeshaya says in the Pasuk, Im tashir mishabat reglecha, asot chafetzecha beyom kodshi, vekarata לשבת עונג לכבוד, לקדוש השם מכובד. וכבודו מעשות דרכיך, מצוא חפצך, ודבר דבר. That's ישעיה נ"ח. We learn over there many halachot that we apply on Shabbat, halacha lema'aseh. First of all, how could you have an Navi coming and telling us a new mitzvah that we learn over here, which we see there's a mitzvah of Oneg Shabbat, kavod Shabbat, and much more than that. A Navi is not allowed to be mechadesh mitzvot. After the Torah is sealed, nobody is allowed to come and be mechadesh mitzvot. Rather, Chachamim can do a derabanan, but not more than that. Over here, it seems like it's applying according to some poskim to even come and tell us what should be the mitzvah mideoraita. Well, some learn that it's only midivrei sofrim, and this is how the Mishnah Berurah starts. It says that עיקר מצוות עונג שבת נתפרש לנו על ידי הנביאים, כמו שנאמר וקראת לשבת עונג. But then the Mishnah Berurah, right in the beginning of הלכות שבת, ראש מ"ב, says יש פוסקים שסביר לה עוד עיקרו מן התורה. Where do you learn that from the Torah? It says in the Torah שהשבת הוא בכלל מקראי קודש שנאמר וביום השביעי שבת שבתון מקרא קודש. The Ramban in פרשת אמור learns that the mitzvah min Torah as well to have Oneg Shabbat. You learn that from the pasuk Uvayom Hashvi'i Shabbat Shabbaton Mikra Kodesh. What does it mean Mikra Kodesh? Chazal explained the word Mikra Kodesh lekadsho lechabdo b'ksut nekiya. You have to honor the Shabbat with clothing that are clean and nice. Uleango be'oneg achila v'shtiya. You have to be mitaneg, to have pleasure in the Shabbat with eating and drinking good, delicious food and good drinks. And this mitzvah is learned in that pasuk in Yeshaya. So according to that, Yeshaya comes to define what the pasuk of Mikra Kodesh comes to tell us. The Navi just comes to explore and explain. Others would learn that since the pasuk in Yeshaya can't come to teach us a new mitzvah, because it says Zot HaTorah, מכאן שאין נביא רשאי לחדש דבר מעתה. A Navi is not allowed to come and teach us new things, so therefore it's only מדברי נביאים, it's considered מדברי סופרים. And this is the Lashon of the Rambam in הלכות שבת, פרק 30. He says ארבעה דברים נאמרו בשבת. There's four things that was said in Shabbat. שניים מן התורה, שניים מדברי סופרים. Two are דאורייתא, and two are considered מדברי סופרים, והם מפורשים על ידי הנביאים. The נביאים came to explain how to apply them. ושנתפרשו על ידי הנביאים, שבתורה it says זכור ושמור. Two mitzvot in the Torah, זכור ושמור. זכור comes to teach us the mitzvah aseh of kiddush on Shabbat. Shamor comes to teach us all the lavim, all the restrictions, all the prohibitions of Shabbat, including the lametet melachot. Those are the deoraita. שנתפרשו על ידי הנביאים, כבוד ועונג, שנאמר וקראת לשבת עונג ולקדוש השם מכובד. There's two things over here. Oneg and kavod. By the way, the difference between oneg and kavod seems to be that oneg is what gives pleasure to the body or even to the soul. If a person enjoys singing songs on Shabbat, that would be oneg, or the body itself, like eating, drinking, going to sleep, or whatever gives a person pleasure on Shabbat, that's oneg. It's a mitzvah. And then you have kavod. What does it mean kavod? You have to honor the Shabbat. It's nothing to do with pleasure of the body, rather it's honoring the Shabbat. So therefore one would have the house cleaned, the table with a tablecloth, and so on and so forth. The Gra, the Gaon Mivilna in Siman Tafkuf Kaftet, says differently. He says that Oneg is something that you do on Shabbat, and Kavod is something that you do before Shabbat. So preparing for the Shabbat cleaning the house, cleaning the tables, making the place available, and so on, would go under the mitzvah of kavod Shabbat, including with that would be taking a shower before Shabbat in hot water, as the Shulchan Aruch is posek, rechitza bechamin. Also, one should, if his hair is a little long, he should cut the hair, shave if he shaves, cut the nails, wearing nice and clean clothing, fixing the house, fixing nice utensils for the Shabbat, put light throughout every room that would be for the honor of the Shabbat. Unlike Oneg Shabbat, as we're saying now in the name of the Gaon Mivilna, that's something that you apply on Shabbat itself, and that is including eating, drinking, sleeping on Shabbat, or whatever gives you pleasure on Shabbat. Now, just to mention that although we're saying that one should sleep on Shabbat and one should eat and drink on Shabbat, but the Mishnah Berurah in a couple of places explains to us that it doesn't mean that you have to overdo it. The Mishnah Berurah in Siman Resh Tzadik says the following thing: Lo yarbe yoter midai. Do not overdo it. She'en hapirush shevalu kol hayom beta'anugim. Even a Talmid Chacham that should have a little bit more pleasure than other people on Shabbat, because throughout the week he's toiling in the Torah and he doesn't give rest to his body and pleasure to his body. So therefore on Shabbat he applies it a little bit more than others. But says the Mishnah Berurah, it doesn't mean that he could completely take that day as a pleasure day and all day have only pleasures. Rather, have a little bit more than others. The Mishnah Berurah in Siman Shin Zayin Dalet says that although some people that have pleasure from hearing stories, from hearing all kind of things that are happening in the world, Sipur Shmuot Oneg Lehem is permitted. Since it's part of Oneg Shabbat, it will be permitted. Mikol Makom, says the Mishnah Berurah, Yizaher milimashech harbe bazeh. Do not overdo it. ואף דבר שהוא עונג גמור, כגון אכילה ושתייה ושינה, מבואר בבית יוסף שאין להימשך הרבה בזה. Even something that's completely coming to be mekayem, the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbat, like eating, drinking, and sleeping, don't overdo it. It doesn't mean that Shabbat is a day that from the beginning to end you only have pleasure. It means there's a certain limit to that as well, and there's a certain shiur to that as well. So in Shabbat, we have, as we're saying right now, 4 things. 2 from the Torah. One of them is the Shvita. The Rambam in the beginning of Hilchot Shabbat explains that Shvita b'shvi'i mimelacha mitzvah taseh. There's a mitzvah mideoraita to be shovet, which means don't do any melacha on Shabbat. Because it says in the Torah, V'yom hashvi'i tishbot. Now this is a mitzvah taseh. Not only a lo taseh, but also a mitzvah taseh. When one keeps Shabbat, he's fulfilling a positive commandment. V'chol ha'oseh bo melacha, and somebody that violated the Shabbat by doing a melacha lo alenu, bitel mitzvah taseh v'avar lo taseh. First of all, he ignored and he was over on that aseh that we just explained, but more than that, he was over also on mitzvah lo taseh shene'emar, lo taseh kol melacha. U'ma'u chayav al asiyat melacha. The Rambam explains that somebody that violated the Shabbat by doing a melacha, what's his punishment? Im asa birtzono, bezadon, if a person did it knowingly, bezadon, which means he had nothing forcing him, he just did it, chayav karet. The violation of Shabbat carries a karet punishment. V'im hayu sham edim v'atraa, and if there would be, that's when there's no edim. Karet is when there's no edim and atraa. That's a punishment min hashamayim, that his soul is cut off. And the explanations in the Rishonim is that it could be that also is cut off from this world at an early age. Now, what happens if there were edim and atraa? You had 2 witnesses that gave him a warning. He would get sekila, he would get stoned. If he did it by mistake, he has to bring korban chatat, he has to bring a korban, a sacrifice to Beit HaMikdash. And this is the dinim of Shabbat by violating Shabbat on different scenarios. Now, we're saying that 4 dvarim ne'emru b'Shabbat, 2 2 mideoraita and 2 midivrei sofrim. The Rambam explains, Ezu kavod, what will be under the mitzvah of kavod Shabbat, as we explained before, is either to be mechabed the Shabbat itself, or to be mechabed the Shabbat itself from before Shabbat. Whatever you do from before Shabbat, for Shabbat. Ezu kavod, זה שאמרו חכמים שמצווה לאדם לרחוץ פניו ידיו ורגליו בחמין בערב שבת מן כבוד השבת. A person should take a hot bath or shower before Shabbat. It says over here in the Rambam, panav yadav v'raglav, but today people that could take a full bath, that's much better. Mitatef betzitzit, yoshev bekavod rosh. A person should dress for the Shabbat and understand that it's a serious thing. It's not a light thing. It's not that you dance in a way that is not בכבוד, you do it בכובד ראש, מייחל להקבלת פני שבת, כמו שהוא יוצא לקראת מלך, you expect and you bring in the Shabbat, just like you bringing a king or a queen, and that's what we say, בואי קלה, בואי קלה. חכמים ראשונים היו מתקבצים, ותלמידיהם בערב שבת מתעטפים ואומרים, בואו נצא לקראת שבת המלך. The Rambam, it's interesting, calls it again, מלך מלך, the king. Shabbat is the king. But in the tefillah, we call the Shabbat, Shabbat Malketa. We call it נצא לקראת Shabbat Malketa. But you have to expect, sing, and bring in the Shabbat. ובכבוד השבת, part of כבוד Shabbat is שילבש כסות נגיעה. You have to have clothing that are clean. ולא יהיה מלבוש החול כמלבוש השבת. Don't wear the same clothing, although they're clean. You can't wear your weekday clothing on Shabbat, says the Rambam. Rather, you have to have special clothing for Shabbat. And if one doesn't have such a thing, he's so poor that he can't afford it, so at least, says the Rambam, he needs to wear it in a different fashion, different way than he would wear it on a weekday, which means, if let's say on weekday, it would be folded, he would let the folds out and wear it differently than he would do before Shabbat. Part of that also is the Takanat Ezra that was metaken to wash clothing on Thursday for Shabbat. Machloket Magen Avraham and Eliyahu Rabbah, what does it mean? What's the Ikar HaTakana? As explained in Chut Shani, Perek Bet, that Magen Avraham says the Ikar HaTakana, main Takana, is to have the clothing washed on a Thursday, which means you're washing anyway. So when should you wash it? On Thursday. Eliyahu Rabbah says the main Takana would be to wash. Just Chachamim said do it on Thursday, but the main Takana is to wash. Lemaaseh, they're both saying the same thing, halacha lemaaseh, but they're only arguing what is the essence of the takana. Is it to wash on a Thursday, and that is the idea to do it on a Thursday, or the essence of the takana is to wash? And Chachamim said, do it on a Thursday, but the takana itself is to wash, to have your clothing washed. And therefore, says the Rambam, part of the kavod Shabbat is asur likvua seuda u'mishte be'erev Shabbat mipnei kavod Shabbat. You're not allowed to have a large meal on erev Shabbat. When you come to Shabbat, you're not hungry. So therefore, part of preparing for Shabbat is also to stay a little bit hungry and not have a whole meal beforehand. Mesader adam shulchano be'erev Shabbat. You prepare the table. Af al pi she'eno tzarich lekazai. By the way, also it says in the halacha that one have to have his tables covered throughout the Shabbat with a tablecloth. He should not take out the tablecloth at all throughout the Shabbat. They always have to be covered on Shabbat. And he keeps on going over here and explaining kavod Shabbat in all different kind of scenarios. Comes the Rambam and says the mitzvah and explains to us the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbat. Ezu Oneg, that we said Oneg is done on Shabbat. As you see the examples of kavod Shabbat, we're all preparing before Shabbat. But Oneg Shabbat, what would that be? זהו שאמרו חכמים, צריך לתקן תבשיל שמן ביותר. You have to have a fatty meat, something that's very, very delicious. משקה מבוסם, the drinks that you have, the liquid that you have, would be something that is sweet. הכל לפי ממונו של אדם, וכל המרבה בהוצאת שבת ובתיקון מאכלים רבים וטובים, הרי זה משובח. The more you spend, the better it is. ואם אין ידו משגת, if you don't have enough, at least get, אפילו לא עשה לה שלק וכיוצא בו שום כבוד שבת, הרי זה עונג שבת. At least get some kind of cooking that would be for שבת. ואינו חייב לעצר לעצמו ולשאול מאחרים כדי להרבות במאכל שבת. If you don't have to go and ask others for charity in order to buy for Shabbat. המוחרמים ראשונים, עשה שבתך חול ואל תצטרך לבריות. Chachamim said, Rabbi Akiva came and taught us that one is better that he should do Shabbat as a weekday and should not ask for charity in order to have Oneg Shabbat. So, when we dwell into that and we try to understand that mitzvah, we found that the Tur in Siman, beginning of Hilchot Shabbat, Siman Rosh Membet, brings a question that he asked from his father, the Rosh. The Tur was the son of the Rosh, and he asked him the following question. This is the Lashon in the Tur. כמה פעמים נסעתי ונתתי בדבר לפני אדוני אבי הראש. I asked my father, the Rosh, few times he came to ask him the following question. כמוני, שיש לי מעט משלי ואינו מספיק לי. Interesting that the Tur was a giant in Am Yisrael. He wrote the Arba Chelkei Shulchan Aruch, the Tur, the Arba Chalakim of the Tur, that the whole Shulchan Aruch is based upon. He was the base of the Halacha of the Shulchan Aruch, and he says that he didn't have enough money in order to buy food for Shabbat, and came and asked him, somebody like me that doesn't have enough money to buy for Shabbat, v'tzarich ani la'achirim, and therefore I would need to have charity from others in order to buy for Shabbat. Im ani bichlal aseh shabbatcha chol ulo. Is that what Rabbi Akiva taught us, that it's better to do the Shabbat as a weekday and not go and ask for charity in order to buy for Shabbat? Or not? Do I have to go and ask, what is my obligations as the Tur? And the Rosh didn't answer him. V'lo yeshiveni davar barur. He never answered me a clear answer. So the Tur himself went searching for the answer for this question, and he says that he found it in Rashi in Pirkei Avot Perek Hey. The Rashi says that what's brought down over there is Rav Yehuda ben Tema Omer ve'az kenamer. One needs to be tough and strong like a tiger. It says in Rashi over there, תכף לאותה משנה, רבי עקיבא אומר, עשה שבתך חול ואל תצטרך לבריות. It says right near it, עשה שבתך חול, that Rabbi Akiva, that one should do the Shabbat as weekday and do not go and ask for others, that for Shabbat for food. שנויאי דבן תימה לא ראויה, דרבי עקיבא לא אמר, אלא מי שהשעת חוקה לו ביותר. אבל צריך לזרז עצמו כנמר לכבד שבתות ביותר. When is that? Comes Rashi and explains us and gives us exactly a definition of when did Rabbi Akiva speak. He said whatever he said only at the time that a person is dachuk beyoter, is very stressed. He doesn't have any other way to do it but to ask for others, and then so when a person gets to that level, he doesn't have, it's better that he should eat regular weekday food than asking from others. But it's sha'at chukalo beyoter, he's very very stressed, he doesn't have it all. אבל צריך לזרז עצמו כנמר לכבד שבתות ביותר. But a person that has the ability, has a little bit, he should push himself to do a little bit more on Shabbat. And therefore the Tur concludes and says, על כן צריך כל אדם לצמצם בשאר ימים כדי לכבד השבת. Therefore he came to a conclusion to his situation that it's better to eat less throughout the week and to have a little bit more Shabbat. ואל יאמר איך אחסר פרנסתי. One should not ask if that's the case, that I have to spend everything that I have for Shabbat. If that's the case, so I'm not going to have enough parnasah. How should I bring home food? I'm spending all my money on Shabbat. כי אדרבה, אם יוסיף, יוסיפו לו. There's a promise from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the Gemara in Beitzah Tedvav brings down, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will pay you everything that you spend for Shabbat. Adraba, im mosif, yosifu lo. If you spend more, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will pay you more and will fulfill that money that you spend for Shabbat. שכל פרנסתו של אדם כתובה לו מראש השנה לראש השנה, חוץ מהוצאות שבת ויום טוב, ואת הוצאת בניו לתלמוד תורה, שאם מוסיף, מוסיפים לו, ואם חסר, מחסירים לו. Which means, if a person spends that money on Shabbat, אם מוסיף, מוסיפים לו, they'll give him more. ואם גרה, גורים ממנו. If he spends less, they'll give him less. So therefore, there's a promise over here that one should spend that extra money. Huchani explains that normally a person is not allowed in any way to spend money that he doesn't have. Which means, it says in Rashi, in that Gemara Tetvav, that the Gemara comes to teach us that there's a certain amount of money that a person would get throughout the year. Rosh Hashanah ועד Rosh Hashanah. That's a certain amount that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is setting up for a person. And Rashi says that is nafka mina, that one should be careful, lizaer לעשות יציאה מרובה, should not overspend that money. שלא יוסיפו לו אלא מה שפסקו לו. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not give him more than what was set for him. So if a person was set a certain amount and he goes and he spends it on all kind of things that he doesn't need, it could be that he spent that money, he's not getting more than that, and he's going to end up having the end of the year poor without any money for himself, lo alenu. So therefore one needs to be careful with that. And explains the Chuchani that it says in Avot that ezu derech rashi yitrachek mimena adam. What is a bad way? One should always try to get away from that bad road, bad path. Haloveh ve'eno meshalem, one that takes and borrows money, but he doesn't pay back. Ben Yonah explains over there that at the time of the loan, when you took that loan, you had to have in mind, you had to know, how am I returning that loan? You can't take a loan without having a payment plan. You have to know, I'm taking a loan, but I have a way how to return that loan. If not, it goes under that lover rasha velo yeshalem. A person that takes money and borrows money and doesn't pay back is considered lover rasha. He's considered a wicked person, velo yeshalem. And therefore, Chuchani explains that normally one is not allowed to borrow money without knowing how you're paying back that loan. But on Shabbat, there's a promise from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, levu alai v'ani porea. If you borrow money, if you don't have money for Shabbat, borrow that money, I will pay back for it. So one can feel confident, have the bitachon, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will pay back that loan. So Tosfot over there in Beitzah, Tetvav Amud Bet, asks, but I don't understand. In one hand it says, levu alai v'ani porea, if you borrow money and for the Shabbat, for the honor of the Shabbat, to buy food for Shabbat and clothing for Shabbat, and I will pay back, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, every dime of it. But on the other hand, Rabbi Akiva says, Asher Shabbatcha chol v'al titzarech lebriot. Rabbi Akiva says, no, don't borrow money. Make Shabbat like a weekday. It's better than asking from anybody anything. So Tosfot answers over there, Hainu she'en lo lifroa. That is when you don't have an ability to pay back. What does that mean? Tosfot understanding is that you can take a loan if you know and you have a payment plan, which means I'm getting my salary next week, next month I have somebody that's gonna pay me for something, so some kind of work that I did for him, and this is how I'll pay back. So I have a plan. But without any plan, it says in the pasuk that it says, Rabbi Akiva says that one should not take and borrow any money. This is Tosfot understanding. But the Gaon Mivilna, on the daf in Beitzah, says that it's only she'en lo mimi lilvot. When is Rabbi Akiva telling you, do not take any money from anybody and don't search for money and for charity or for a loan when you don't have? If you don't have anybody that's lending you, you don't have to go and go out of your way to find somebody like that. But if you have somebody that's willing to lend you, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, don't worry about it. Levu alai, take that loan, v'ani porea, I will pay it back. Don't worry about it. So this is the understanding of the Gaon Mivilna. If you have somebody that's willing to give you the money that you should have for Shabbat, take it. If you don't have it, you don't have to go out of your way finding ways. And that is when Rabbi Akiva said that Aseh Shabbatcha chol. Marshal says a different perush that is brought down in the Mishnah Bura, and that is she'en lo mashkonot lilvot alehem. If you have a collateral, then you're allowed to take a loan. But if not, you're not allowed to take a loan, which means like this. If you have a way to give a collateral for that loan, so then you can take it. And although you're taking it based on that collateral, on that mashkon, but still, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you don't have to worry. You're not going to have to pay it back from what you put as a mashkon. Rather, I will pay it back. That is the meaning of levu alai v'ani porea. Uvelo mashkon, and yachol lasig. Without it, he's not going to be able to get. And this is the understanding that when it's mutar to take and when it's asur to take that loan for Shabbat Kodesh. So when we get to the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbat and Kavod Shabbat, we have over here three different ma'amarei Chazal, three different things that Chazal told us, and this is how the Mishnah Berurah breaks it down. He says that Chazal said in one place that one is required and obligated to be me'aneg the Shabbat, to have the pleasure on Shabbat, bedagim gdolim, large fish, very, very delicious large fish, ראשי שומim, תבשיל של טרדין, כל זה מאכלים חשובים בזמנם. The Mishnah Berurah explains that these are good, delicious food in their time, very expensive, good food. And he says, כן, בכל מקום לפי מנהגו ינגעו במאכלים חשובים ומשקיעים חשובים להם עונג. Which means every place should be according to what they like. So if you're eating in your place a very expensive piece of roast meat, that's what you should buy. That's what you enjoy. That's what you should buy for Shabbat. So we see one Ma'amar Chazal that one should have the most expensive, delicious food on Shabbat. On the second hand, it says that one should do something for Shabbat, something extra, davar mu'ad lechvod Shabbat, like kasa de harsena. Kasa de harsena was small fish that they fry in oil. So such fish would be something different than what you would eat on a weekday. That's what's allowed to do on Shabbat. Buy those fish for Shabbat or prepare them for Shabbat. So you see, you don't have to go overboard to have something extremely expensive and delicious. Even something small, minor, Chazal say that that's sufficient. So it seems to be a contradiction. And then you have the third thing that we kept on saying before, and that what Rabbi Akiva says, Shabbat chachol, v'al titzarech lebriot. Don't do anything for Shabbat. Nothing at all. All those things are contradicting one the other. It comes the Mishnah Berurah and explains that this is the way you work it out. This talking about three different classes of people. Whoever has the ability to buy the very expensive food, tzarich lechabdo kefi yocholto, has to buy that expensive food that he really enjoys and likes. But a person that doesn't have that ability is dachuk beyoter. That was the lashon we saw in the tour. Dachuk beyoter, very, very stressed, very, very pressured, and he doesn't have any money at all. למי שהשעה דחוקה לו ביותר, אנו שאין לו רק מזון שתי סעודות לשבת, person that doesn't have just the basic minimal 2 meals for Shabbat, minimal meals, אמר רבי עקיבא, עשה שבתך חול ואל תצטרך לבריות. And with that, he's not obligated to have Suda Shlishit and doesn't have to have even Kasa Darsana, even those fish, that extra fish that he enjoys more. Again, that fish is only an example for something extra that you do for Shabbat. If a person has something that he likes for Shabbat, he does that. But if one doesn't even have the ability to have that, he's patur from all that. That was Rabbi Akiva. And then you have the middle stage, that someone that has that amount, he just minimal, he just have exactly what it takes to have extra for Shabbat, for the kasa de harsena. מי שיש לו ממון כדי לקנות מזה מזון 3 סעודות ויותר מזה קצת, should you spend that money on Shabbat, or should you say, listen, I have to save the money for after Shabbat, I have to have money for a rainy day? He says, מחויב להוציא אותם על השבת כדי שיקיים 3 סעודות וכסה דארסנה. You have to spend that money that you have, that's all you have. Spend that money on the 3 סעודות on Shabbat, 3 meals, and kaseh d'Arsena, and the extra thing that you like for Shabbat. And don't save that money at all. And it says, when it says, עשה שבתך חול ואל תצטרך לבריות, there's an extra point over here. That is only, says the Mishnah Berurah, a person that didn't start collecting charity. But if one already started collecting charity, he's already nitzrach labriot. So therefore, then the charity itself, the kupat or tamchui that would feed that person, give him food or give him the money to buy, they are obligated to give him everything that he needs for Shabbat, for the 3 meals. But Rabbi Akiva was saying only for such people that did not yet start taking charity. That was the Tur. The Tur himself says, am I under that category of Al Titzarech Labriot, Aseh Shabbatcha Chol Ve'al Titzarech Labriot, oh, I'm obligated to take something. So we see that we're talking about such a level, a third level, and therefore you break it over here to three different categories. One category is a person that has all the ability. He can have a fancy meal on Shabbat. Again, we explained before, that doesn't mean that you buy endless without boundaries. Rather, you buy more for Shabbat, fancy food for Shabbat, but it doesn't mean that all day you eat and drink and pleasure yourself. It just means that on Shabbat itself, whenever you have a Seudah, have over there everything that a person likes. That's the level of a person that has the ability. One that is on the middle level, that is such that could buy it, but he's spending all his money and he has to stress himself and save in order to have for Shabbat, and even could be that he's taken away from weekdays and keeping that extra money for Shabbat. He's obligated to do that. And the third level, that a person, even if you do all that, he still doesn't have. He just has the minimal bread and water for a meal and for 2 meals. So therefore, as long as he didn't start taking charity, what would be the din? The din is Aseh Shabbatcha Chol ve'al titztarech labriot. Says the Mishnah Berurah that whenever you preparing for Shabbat, you have to make sure that you have at least 2 tavshilim, 2 kinds of cookings, which means you can't just have rice, or you can't just have meat. You have to have rice and meat, rice and chicken. You have to have 2 cookings. And if a person on a weekday also is like that he usually eats 2 tavshilim, so therefore Shabbat has to be different. He should make 3 tavshilim. And says the Mishnah Berurah that there's a mitzvah also to eat fish on Shabbat, on the 3 meals, if a person likes fish. One that doesn't like fish, he doesn't have to eat fish, because Shabbat le'oneg nigna ve'lo le'tzar, person should try to enjoy what he eats. So therefore, if he likes that fish, he should try to have them on the 3 meals. And lechol hapachot on the 3rd meal, Seudah Shlishit. According to Kabbalah, the big inyan to eat on Seudah Shlishit fish. So if that person has a fish and he can't eat it the whole 3 meals, let's say it's just too much for him, he feels that fish 3 meals already he can't stand. And again, we said that Shabbat le'oneg nitna ve'lo le'tzar, you don't have to force yourself eating something you don't like, so keep it for Seudah Shlishit. Some say that Seudah Shlishit, you don't have to have 2 tavshilim. That's the minhag that many would have on Seudah Shlishit, simple things, they don't have tavshilim. But if you could keep the fish for Seudah Shlishit, that's the way one should do it. So now we can understand and read the Shulchan Aruch and everything put in the right perspective. Afilu, says the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Resh Mem Bet, Afilu mi shetzarich le'acherim, im yesh lo me'at mishelo, even a person that could get supported by others, he needs that extra food, but he has a little bit for himself, צריך לזרז עצמו לכבד את השבת. He should push himself to be מכבד the Shabbat. ולא אמרו עשה שבתך חול ואל תצטרך לבריות, אלא למי שהשעה דחוקה לו ביותר. This that a person that the Chazal said, do the Shabbat as a weekday, is only a person that's דחוק ביותר. He doesn't have anything. על כן צריך לצמצם בשאר ימים כדי לכבד את השבת, ומתקנת עזרא שהוא מחפשים בגדים בחמישי בשבת מפני כבוד השבת. So we see over here, it wraps up few things about the mitzvah of kavod Shabbat and Oneg Shabbat. So one that wants to do the mitzvah correctly will start with what we explained this time, and will follow Be'ezrat Hashem next time with more mitzvot that have to do with the mitzvah of kavod Shabbat and Oneg Shabbat.